Get the Twitter sent out. Get the bot in here. Get our Discord taken care of. And probably I should walk on screen. So, hello everyone. This is Chris Ingerson, and it. Oh, hold on. Aha. Let's try that again. Hello everyone. This is Chris Ingerson, and it is July 30th. And this is the July 30th Text Quest Devstream. I apparently can't talk today. I keep getting my tongue tied up. Blah. Anyway, so today we are going to be focusing on finishing up our layout stuff. Specifically, we are going to be focusing on fog and getting fog to spawn and synchronize across all of the sections in the woods layout. So currently, we have a tested method of how to set up fog, and that's basically going to entail. Let me close some of the stuff I was working on before the stream. Essentially, that's going to entail spawning fog, and every time the player enters a new section, basically refreshing the fog as the player crosses those boundaries, and then we can force the fog to stay synced up. It's a little weird because we're basically going to be spawning individual fog particle effects per section, and then every time the player enters a new section, we will stop the previous fog particles and spawn new ones. So it's a little unoptimized just because there's not really a great way for us to handle that. Like I said, we do have to actually stop all of the particle effects, but we can't cancel them outright. Um, we have to basically let them stop. We have to call stop on them, let them stop on their own, and then start a new particle effect per section. If we try to go too fast and actually affect if we try to go too fast and just stop the particle effect outright, then what ends up happening is a error gets thrown to the console for some reason, basically saying that we can't set the random seed at runtime while the particle effect is playing. And we can't do a hard cull where we stop it and clear all of its particles, because if we do that, that just means every time you cross a section, you're going to see pop in as or pop out, I guess, as the particles just are culled. So we have to do this kind of dual layered system that will properly stop and start our section fog as we cross all the sections. There are how to handle this. There are ways to optimize at the very least how we're calling the fog. So we don't want to start spawning fog until after all of the sections have been spawned and despawned. That way we can appropriately clear our fogs, and we only have to do that once per section change as opposed to twice. So let's go ahead, and this is kind of the setup that we had set up for this. Of course. So you can see that whenever we start our secondary systems, we're stopping the previous ones, we're recycling them once they're done. This was a much more brute force method. We actually came up with a better way, which was basically to let the root system stop on its own and then give it a callback. So let's go ahead and we're going to stop. I'm going to turn on our layout. Turn that on. I'm going to turn off our quad here. Spawn point, all that stuff is good, I guess. Okay. So we're going to go to our layout here. And I am going to grab... Oh, I did forget to do this before. Hold on. Graveyard gate. There we go. I forgot to do this before. Actually, you know what? That's a good thing for us to do anyway. So before we start playing, I am going to select all of our wonderful, wonderful prefabs here so that we can force all of our substances to actually generate. Let's see, so that's the walls. Let's go to the clutter real quick. This is just forcing all of these substances to generate. Versus if we had played these, or if we had spawned these in the editor, they would not have properly set up yet. And that's because the layout has no real understanding of what its the substances under it are, which makes sense because it doesn't need to know that. Only the level manager needs to know all that stuff. Anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and grab our layout. I'm gonna open up with layout new. You can see that we do have a fog section here. Find all references. Currently, we are not actually doing anything with this, so we need to go through and we do have the fog systems. Okay. You know what? I don't actually think we need this section fog systems. All of the fog particles have to stop anyway, so it makes sense just to have them in one massive list. Oh man, that does make things a little bit more complicated in that respect, but it should be fine. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and so we have spawn section, spawn despawn section, then we're gonna go ahead and say spawn section buffers. I suppose despawn section buffers. Here we are. So right here, I'm just gonna go ahead and say private void spawn section fogs. Spawn sections fog, I guess. Jeez, how about section fog effects? That's spawn section fog effects. I guess that's better. All right, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and say private void clear sections section fog effects. All we're going to do is say for int I equals 0, I is less than fog systems dot count I plus plus. Okay, and we're just going to say fog systems dot fog systems of I dot stop. Pretty straightforward. And then at the bottom here, we're just going to say fog systems dot clear. Okay, that's all we need to do there. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than sections. What is it? Spawn sections, is that what it is? Yep. Spawn sections dot count I plus plus. And before we do that, we're just going to say clear section fog effects, might as well. And then we're just going to go through here and we're going to say particle manager dot play. Oops, right. So we're going to say actually game manager dot get particle manager dot play particles, and we'll give it a fog particle ID with this parent that I don't want to put it. I don't want to parent it actually, because if I parent it, it will be culled when the section is despawned, and that I don't actually want to do. So I need to be careful, and I need to do this. You suck. All right, so we're gonna say spawn sections of I dot transform, which is surprisingly. And then we're going to say false. Okay. So I'm actually going to have to add a particle system value here. Are you mine? No, you're going to the root of it. Okay. So we're going to peek this. We're going to go to wood section, go to definition, go to wrap zone, go to wrap zone. This is an SOS mode of behavior now. There we go. That makes more sense. Might as well. Okay. So in addition to all of that, we are going to, let's see, go back to Woods Layout New. So now that is cached, so it should be a little bit more performant. I'm going to go to Play Particles, go to Definition here, and we are going to just add a couple of our, oh wait, okay. Mm, mm, Okay. Right. 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 Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this. Don't worry, we're going to clean this up in a second. I'm going to paste this down here. In addition to parenting, we are going to have vector 3 offset. Okay, and that means that at the end here, we're just going to call return get particles id position offset parent. There we go. Oh, right, sorry. This is going to be vector 3.0. Okay. So that means that this is going to be request that plus offset and then quaternion dot identity. Pretty straightforward. Okay, and here we are going to say position dot position plus offset, I guess. Pretty straightforward. Okay, that's all we had to do there. I should probably go ahead and comment this. Get the name. Value of the particle data. Uh, get the name value of the particle data associated with the given ID. Okay, and then we're going to say ID. So it's going to be ID for the particle system. Oh, nope, hold on. ID for the particle data to find the name value of, there we go, spawns and returns. I don't think we actually play it. Yes, we just, okay, spawns and returns. The particle system associated with the given ID. ID for the ID for the target particle system. Transform to position the particle system at, if true, will parent the spawn particle system to the position transform. I will come back and comment these later. I probably shouldn't start commenting all of this on air. It's just going to be like 5 minutes of me doing that. So, okay, that's working there. Let's go ahead and pop back over to here. And we are going to say this followed by fog offset. Pretty straightforward. Why are you mad? You are lying. I literally just made this. Oh, right, because that's get particles. So let's go ahead and copy this again. And much like before, we're just going to say vector 3 offset. And we'll just say return play particles ID position vector 3.0 parent. Okay. And then we're going to say parent plus offset. Okay. Pretty straightforward. Okay. So let's go ahead and let that compile. And then I think that will basically do what we want. Oh, except I didn't set that up right. So this is going to be particle root system. Root is equal to that. And then we're going to say fog systems dot add root. Okay, that should be correct now. But you'll notice that we are not currently setting up our random seed value, which means that I need to actually handle that. So that's fun. Cool. So that's not going to work then. We need to come over to here. And instead of saying play particles, we're going to say get particles. Okay. And then we're going to say at the very end root.play. And we can say, we'll just say true. I don't think we'll have more than one system really for this, but might as well do that just in case. All right, and then from here we need to say, well, we want to basically standardize what our random seed is going to be. So I guess we can just do this. Uint random seed is equal to random.range from, not random range, just random.range from 0 to int.max value. I know you're going to complain. We're going to cast you to a uint. That should fix that. And then we're going to go ahead and say root.system. Oh, not that, sorry. Root.particle system. Particles, there we go. Dot random seed is equal to that. I do wonder. Oh, you know what? This is just gonna be false. If we have nested particles, then I'm going to have to dig through those. So hopefully we won't really have to worry about that. All right. So we'll set a new random seed each time, and let's see how that looks. But in theory, this should spawn fog on everything now. Okay. I think as of right now, this is only concerned with, that. So we need to go to my test case, which is somewhere around here. Here's our fog. So I'm going to need this, and I'm going to need to find my particle manager, particle action castle. Let's go ahead and say create folder world, create folder woods, create folder. Yeah, that's fine. Prefabs. Okay, so we're going to move that particle prefab up. Put you to there. And then we're going to go ahead and say create SOS, text quest, and then collection. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. This is going to be for create SOS particles, particle collection. There we go. Particle collection woods. There we go. Let's go ahead and boop. Okay, we got that. Oh my goodness, I really want to adjust this, but we'll live with this for now. Name, system, that's all good. All right. I just want to adjust it to use my new layout group stuff, but it's fine. Okay, So we're going to go ahead and select you. We're going to open you up. I'm going to grab the particle manager, click down here. We're going to add this particle system right there. I wonder if that's actually a good idea, because all those things will be loaded into memory. Should be fine for now, at least. All right, so we're going to go back over here to layout, fog, woods, test. Let's go ahead and save that out, and we should be good. So in theory, we should be able to spawn things, except I actually haven't called that yet. So spawn section buffers, spawn section. So the first thing we do is we call spawn section buffers on this, and once we do that, I suppose we're going to call fog. So let's try this. Spawn section fog effects. Let's try that. And again, it's very important that we do not actually parent the. Oh, and I should probably say coding today. It is very important that we do not actually parent the fog effect to the section, because if we do that, when we recycle the section, the fog effect will get turned off and recycled with it, which will cause the particle effect manager to kind of freak out, and that's not great. Actually, I assume the particle manager would be okay. It's just that the particle system itself would not be able to clean itself up properly, I don't think. So let's try this real quick. Okay, fog is perhaps a bit too alpha for me. Might want to dampen that a little bit, just a smidge. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and set our start color here to be like, well, here, let's just go to color over lifetime. Let's set our total opacity to be like 200 instead of 255. So now our particle effect should be a little bit more transparent, which I would prefer for fog. Okay, so that is up and running. I think we probably want to tone down the amount of fog too, but otherwise it's actually not looking too bad. We might raise the fog a smidge off the ground. I'm a little concerned that fog can spawn with like part of the fog below ground. Yeah, like right there, you can see that it's. Yeah, okay. So we gotta do a couple of small adjustments there. So I'm gonna go ahead and say 2.6. So that should give me 1.1 meters off of the ground. And in addition to that, I'm going to go ahead and shrink the emission rate. Let's cut it by half, I think. I'm hopeful that will be okay. Okay. I am a little concerned because you can see that the like if you stop in place for long enough, you'll notice that fog is happening. basically in sync. Maybe that's not too much of a problem. Shit. That pop in was pretty bad. Okay. It's weird though, because in theory that shouldn't actually be happening. Okay. So oh. Okay. Right. What to do about this? So it looks partially correct if you stay in one spot for long enough. Basically, if you are right next to the entrances, uh, the transition areas. If we go too far, then what ends up happening is when we run back, you'll see that all of the fog is despawned, but only over there, all the way back. Okay, so you seem fine. It's also very funny that, like, you can see the massive amount of particle effects that, oh, I guess that's just because the areas all disappear. Um, okay, so why do you sometimes pop in? Oh, that's why. Okay. It's because when you're far away and you're sprinting, things don't have the visual distance that they need to properly clean up and recycle. Okay, so recycling everything and starting everything again is not a valid option. Not really. If we could, it would be better to reposition existing ones rather than start new ones. Which, of course, take time. I'm going to try also turning on pre-warm. Maybe we can get away with that. If we can, we'll be fine. So as long as pre-warm does not mess up the random seed values on everything, it shouldn't matter. The problem that we were running into, I think the reason that we saw the fog disappear was because basically our uh, we were running so fast that fog kept despawning before it could properly populate, which meant that it had to warm up again on each. Oh, no, that's bad. So, I mean, technically everything is still in sync, I think. But, yeah. Okay, so no pre-warming. Okay, so. This complicates things. Let's see here. So, we have it syncing up, but at the same time, we don't. If we run too fast, it will never properly spawn. So I think the only real option there is not to stop playing all of the existing ones every time we transition a section, and instead, excuse me, to start playing new ones and despawning old ones specifically, or perhaps just shuffling them around. Ay, 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 ay. Oh. That's just not good. Okay. So, if we approach this from, excuse me, if we approach this with the desire to essentially not have that noticeable fall off, I'm not really sure what we can do. Um, the easiest thing to do is going to be, instead of stopping and recycling old systems from despawn sections, is going to be basically repositioning them instead of stopping them outright, which is functional, but is so much harder to do. Okay, trying to think about how to handle this then. So, that dictionary, I suppose, is necessary again then. We go all the way up to the top here. You can see that originally we had this, our section fog systems. And that's basically a tracking list of systems that is similar to how our sections spawn. So we have the collection ID representing what collection of sections it belongs to, and then its specific coordinate and the system itself. So, okay. I'm trying to think about how we want to handle this. I suppose that means that we would want to cycle through all of our existing sections here. Grab any, so no, we would actually want to cycle through the fog systems and look for any fog systems that exist that don't have sections anymore that correspond to their values. If they don't have sections that correspond to their values, then we're going to want to remove it, put it into a list of usable ones, and then we're going to want to reposition those in another for loop. So we're basically going to do like two for loops, one where we go through all of the fog systems and one where we go through all the sections. And when we loop through all the fog systems, we're going to compare all the values that are in there to the values in sections. And if we find any values for the fog systems that don't exist in sections, we're going to move that fog system. And then on the second for loop, we will say if we run into any section values that don't have corresponding sections in the fog system, we need to then spawn sections for that or reposition existing ones. So that complicates things a lot more. Okay. So we're going to do this then. Private void spawn missing section fog effects. Private void clean up, or clear, I guess is what I call it. Clear missing section fog effects. Okay. So with this, we are going to go ahead and say for int I equals 0, I is less than fog. That's not going to work. We have to do a for each loop. So for each for each collection ID. Okay, of course you're going to be like that. Woods layout collection ID col ID in section fog effects. You're killing me, Smalls. Section fog systems dot keys. Okay, so for each one of those, then we're going to have to iterate through everything again. And then we're going to say for each vector2 int chord in section fog systems of col ID dot keys. If section, oh, hold on, I think it's sections, yeah, contains key, col ID, and then if sections of col ID dot contains key, chord. Okay, so we want to say if, so if not that, and then else if, and if not that, then we basically want to return the list of those, don't we? Okay, so we're going to say this is going to return a list of root, particle root systems. Okay, so we're going to say list particle root system systems is equal to new. Then we're going to go ahead and say return systems. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and say, so if not this, we're going to say systems dot add section fog systems of col ID. Oh, stop it. Col ID of chord. Okay. And then we will remove that. You're killing me. Alright. So we need to do this. List vector2 int. How was I doing this before? I was doing it like that before, I believe. Yes, okay. So this will be chords is equal to new section fog systems col ID dot keys. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then instead of a for each loop, I'm going to do a for loop. So we're going to go ahead and just change that out. So we're going to, we'll just do this in a separate for loop for now. For int I equals 0, I is less than chords dot count, I plus plus, and then we're going to say if not sections. Oh, actually, you know what? That's a very, well, that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and copy that, paste that in there. I'm going to say chords of I. Chords of I. Okay, so let's get rid of this for each loop, and then we're going to go ahead and say, so in either case, we're going to remove, we're going to add the list of those things, and in both cases, we will also, okay, I guess that makes sense. So why don't I just do this, or, not that or really matters, I guess, and, no, should be or. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to say systems, oh, sorry, not that. Then we're going to say section fog systems of col ID dot remove, and then chords of I. Okay, so that should probably work all that stuff out just fine. And then we're going to go ahead and say, yeah, it's all fine. So we're there. We're good there. That should just give us our list of systems. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to call clear missing section fog effects. That's going to give us our list particle root system. Systems is equal to that. And we're going to call these like leftover systems. Okay. Now we basically need to do the opposite, where we're going to loop through all of the existing sections, and we're going to check to see int system index is equal to 0, and we're just going to see if we have anywhere that these things need to go. Okay, so we're going to say for each woods layout collection ID, whatever, col ID in sections. We want sections, yeah. Dot keys. Okay, and then we're gonna do pretty much this. This one we can do in a second for each loop. I don't think we need this to be a thing. So we can go ahead and say for each vector2 int chord in sections of col ID dot keys. Bah! I just don't like for each loops, so I'm actually just going to do this. For int I equals 0, I is less than 0, I plus plus. I know that's not going to make sense yet. We're just going to do this thing again. Section col IDs dot keys. Okay. And this is just going to be chords dot count. All right. And from here, we're going to go ahead and say if not sections, sorry, not sections, if not fog sections dot contains key, col ID, let's try that again, col ID, or not sections of col ID of chords of I. Did that all wrong. Dot contains key. So if that, and this is not going to be section, it's going to be section fog systems. Okay. So if that's the case, it means that our fog system doesn't exist, and it needs to. So we're going to go ahead and say down here, if system index is less than left over systems dot count, that is fine, yes. So if that's the case, else we're going to actually have to spawn new ones. So we're going to say okay, I guess, man, how messy is that? Okay, right, so we're just going to do this. Int random seed is equal to, I guess, we'll want to grab that random seed from a value. Also, hello Shokanshi. Welcome to the Devstream. How are you doing today? Besides not feeling very circular, obviously. I see you're more of an angles person. Alright, so I could pass this in randomly. Alright, fine, let's do that. So we're going to say systems.count is greater than 0. So if we have more than 0 systems, then we're just going to pull the random seed from the first one. So it's going to be systems of 0 dot random, dot particles dot random seed. Okay, and otherwise it's going to be a random value. So we're going to say this has to also be a uint actually. say uint, I'm going to say random dot range from 0 to, this is one of the unfortunate things about uints. Random.range only works with floats and ints, which means we can't go to the maximum of uint, but really halfway to it is fine. So we can just say int.max value. That will get us something that we can use as far as uints goes. All right, so from here, we can then copy this, and that's actually not what we want. Hold on, we're going to put this back to here. There we are. So we're just going to go ahead and put that there. And this is going to be leftover systems instead of systems. All right, so we have our random seed, we have our system index. System index is basically just going to be what we increment as we assign these fog particle effects. Oh, by the way, I suppose I should tell you what we're doing currently. Doing well? Well, that's good. Hopefully you will continue to do so. We are currently working on a way of synchronizing particle effects across a level so that every time you do a seamless teleport, you don't notice the stuttering in the fog. So once that compiles, I will show you what we're currently trying to do. Currently, it is syncing the fog up, but the fog is basically, if you move too fast, the fog is technically synced up, but there's just no fog that's spawned, and therefore it looks weird when you teleport. You'll notice a cutoff. So we're trying to mitigate that by, instead of despawning all the particle fog effects and spawning in all new ones, just moving them around so that it is less apparent. So let's go ahead and maximize on play to make this a little bit easier. So you can see that we have a bunch of particle effects that are spawning in. I actually wonder, let's turn on stats, make sure that I'm not tanking performance doing this. I wouldn't really expect me to. Yeah. This really isn't doing much in terms of rendering too much, but all right. So you can see that all the fog is synced up. It will seamlessly loop if we do it correct, but you'll notice a little jump here. So you'll notice that the fog is kind of gone. It's because if we're running too far or too fast, basically the fog keeps despawning, and therefore it can't emit enough particles to actually make everything look right. I also think we need to go up by one more, just out of curiosity. Woo! I would like to look at, yep, I knew you were going to be culling too much. I want to look at what my fog looks like. There we are. I'm going to open up my emission. I'm sorry, shape is what I wanted. So I think, yes, even with 0.1 off the ground, we probably want to go a little bit higher than that. We might go like 0.25 off the ground for our offsets. Well, that's the thing, right? That's what the fog is doing. So the problem here is if we go back the way we came, it actually won't be as noticeable. Ooh, actually it was. That's pretty bad. Actually, hold on. Let's let this generate our fog a little bit, and then I'm going to pop back in. Are you culling it if I'm not looking at it? Don't do that, Unity. You need to simulate all the time. So this is what I was talking about. You can see the fog basically just vanish, and it shouldn't be doing that. How interesting. I wonder if, I'm going to turn off maximize on play. I wonder if we were getting false results when we were testing this earlier. Basically, I thought it was working because it was being forced to simulate. Oh, how interesting. Okay. So, curiously, if we're in full screen mode and we're not looking in the direction of the particle effects that we are teleporting to, we'll get this. Because I wasn't looking at it, and therefore it wasn't in bounds to render, so it just didn't. Oh, that makes things so complicated. Okay, crap. That means we want it to not cull, basically. Which I think it goes under rendering? Sorting layer, order, cast shadows, custom vertex, sort mode. There should be a way to turn off culling on this. Let's see, custom data, trails, lights, texture sheet animation, sub-emitters, triggers, collision, noise, external forces, shape, direction, rate over time. Let's see, scaling mode, local, delta time is scaled, simulation space is local. So that is not great. So as is, I think if I walk back over here, yeah, we'll see everything as it was. Were we getting noticeable fog? Like, is it? Okay, no, okay. So it does seamlessly wrap. I was just thinking of something else. So yeah, yep. Crud. I guess to test that fully, I can do this. So now, if I teleport back to the other section with a giant tree, it should no longer render. So we'll see it pop. Yep. Yep. Crap. You gotta do the sneaky hack. Make a giant box around the player that is always attached with the fog in that, so it is always rendered. Just hide it when entering certain areas with a flag. See, so I thought about that, but we actually do have a problem with that. if if I parent it to the player, then well, I can just show you actually. Because I had considered, I actually tried doing that before I settled on this solution. If I just assign a particle emitter to the player, let me go ahead and grab one. Fog, woods, I'll just grab a random one. Sure, this one seems about right. So if I just move this to be below the hero, and let's go ahead and just say 0 out this. That's probably fine, 2.5. So you can see that the fog is rendering. Oh, it's always rendering correctly, but the problem is it's also following you, which looks very, very unnatural, and it can actually make it quite difficult to see anything. So I needed something that didn't rotate with the player because that looks wrong, but I didn't want anything that would also not be synced up across player movements. So having everything kind of be forced to be in the same position for the most part works. But as you can see, we have a problem where it's not, where it's culling it basically because it's not being looked at. So that also has its own problems. Because I tried that as well. If we set it to be an object that follows the player around, actually let me see if I can do this real quick. I don't remember if I have a follow player script. Yeah. I can write that real quick to show you what it looks like though. Let's go down to layout. We'll go to layout test. And we're just going to do like a follow transform behavior. So instead of parenting it to the player, you're talking about having it follow the player's position. We can do something like that, but the only problem is that there are some frame stutters when we teleport and when we move. So if I move this to be, let's make this an SOS, SOS mono behavior. We're going to go ahead and say private void. We're going to put this in late update because if we put it in update, it's going to be super snappy. And we're just going to give it a public transform target is equal to null. We're just going to say if no target, or I'm sorry, if target does not equal null. If target does not equal null, then we're going to say transform dot position is equal to target dot position. So pretty straightforward script. Don't really have to do much with it. But if we do that, it's going to have a little bit of stuttering on it, unfortunately. But I can show you what it looks like. So So we're going to go ahead and let that compile. I'm going to drag in the particle effect that we're using. I'm going to adjust it a little bit just so that everything is, so that we have a larger area essentially. So I'm going to grab this, pull you into here, scroll back down here. We're going to attach the follow transform script, which ideally would go above that, but it's fine for us to do it here. All right, and we're going to target the hero. I suppose I can also do this. So I'm going to say public vector 3 offset is equal to vector 3 dot 0, and then we're just going to say that plus offset. And then I'm also going to go ahead while we're at it, come over to Woods Layout New, and I'm going to turn off our fog spawning so that we don't have to worry about that. I think this is the only place that we're doing that right now. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and comment that out so we don't spawn any fog besides the one that we want. Also, based on your advice, Shokanshi, Shokanshi, it sounds like you're a developer. Are you? I always like to ask people that stop by if they're developers. Mostly because I assume that most of the people who find my stream are other developers that are just kind of perusing Twitch. All right, so let's not compile. All right, we'll give it an offset of, I think it was like 2.5, something like that. If we put it straight in the ground, it's not going to look quite right. But we will also go ahead and focus on that. I'm wasting time rather than doing what I should be doing. Well, that's a very vital process. It's a very vital part of the process. Don't knock not doing what you're supposed to be doing. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just increase the size of this. Let's change its shape. I'm gonna double everything, so we'll make we'll make it triple. So 30 by 30. We don't have to go up we don't have to go any taller vertically though. We're good with that. Then we're gonna go ahead and just say an emission rate of, let's go ahead and play this, 3, I guess. Yeah, that seems about a decent rate for that, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm just going to turn on autoplay for this one, so play on wake. Let's go ahead and stop you again. All right, so now when we spawn into the area, it should be parented. Well, it's not going to be parented to our player transform, but it will be following us around. All right. So it still has the same problem where the fog is moving with you. And oops, let's get rid of the cursor here. Let's turn on maximize on play as well. So even though it's no longer rotating with us, it is still moving with us. And that is one of the things that I wanted to avoid, because then it doesn't really feel like you're moving through the fog. It just kind of feels like you have this screen space effect happening that doesn't quite feel right. The other thing to notice is keep an eye on this when we teleport. Okay, actually, it wasn't too bad. Maybe that was just a stutter from the initial teleportation. So that's the other thing uh, is that basically when we have it follow the player, even if it's not rotating, it will still maintain position and distance from the player, so it doesn't look like the fog is really moving much, or it doesn't feel like you're running through fog. It just kind of feels like there's fog around you. Um, so that's a functional thing, but that's not quite what I want to do. Also, hello Blue Barn, welcome to the Devstream. And yes, I call it a first-person text-based adventure. uh, so I'm going to real quick. We're going to turn you off, and I'm going to pop back in here. We're going to finish calling our spawn section fog effects, except I'm actually going to call spawn missing section fog effects. And before, well, I got to finish this up real quick. So let's see. The place that we were at is we had recycled all, or we had listed all of our existing systems that do not need to be attached to a section anymore. So now we need to either assign them or reassign them or spawn new ones. So we're going to say if our system index is less than our leftover systems.count, so if we have some free systems to reparent, then we can simply say, let's see here. We're going to have to basically reposition it. So we're going to say section fog systems. Trying to think about how to handle this. I guess what we should probably do here is instead of straight up doing this in all of these ifs, we should say if not section fog systems dot contains key col id. Then we need to add that, so we're gonna have to say section fog systems of col id. It's gonna be equal to new that. And then we're going to go ahead and say, so if we have an extra system left over, then we're going to say section fog systems of col id of chords of I is equal to leftover systems of system index. Okay. Then we're going to have to say system index plus plus, that's at the very end, but before that we're going to say leftover systems of system index dot transform dot position is equal to this is going to be a little bit difficult. It's going to be sections of col id of chords of I dot transform dot position plus fog offset. Okay. And if we do not have any systems left over, then we basically want to do this. It's essentially going to be what we were doing actually before. So we're going to pop down here. We're going to do this whole thing. Okay. So spawn sections. We're not going to do spawn sections of I, though. We are going to say sections, if I could spell, sections of col id of chords of I dot transform fog offset, all that stuff's fine. All right, and then for our random seed, we need to set that up here as well. No, we don't, because these should all be the same still, so we should be good. Okay, so I think that's all we needed to do here. Let's go ahead and just make this a little bit more efficient, get rid of some spacing, and then let's give this a shot. And while that's compiling, so Shokanshi, you said you were a dev. What do you work on, if you don't mind me asking? Because that's another thing that I always like asking developers. Let's see. So assuming, oh crap, did I? Yeah, I did. Call that. Okay. So I think that will do everything that we need it to. Um, it should spawn new sections if we. Let me make sure I didn't forget anything. That's fog effects. Okay. Yeah, that should be good then. Okay. So let's give this a shot. All right. So now all of our fog particle effects should spawn in like they were before, but now instead of despawning them from all sections and respawning new ones, we will now retain the ones that we've already spawned, and then we will move ones that no longer need to exist. All right, it's looking good so far. We do have a lot of fog. Oh God, why is there so much fog? Are these? I can't. I hope that they're not double. Well, let's see. Are you doubling up? Ooh. That does not look good. I see. These shouldn't be here. I think we're doubling up. Let's see here. The easy way to tell this is going to be how many things of fog do we have? A lot. Way, 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 way more than we need. So, yeah. Okay, so they were doubling up. I work on all sorts of things over the years, or at least a few projects. But none really went anywhere. Only one that did somewhat okay was a space MMO. Had 25-ish active players in a short lifespan. That's rough. But MMOs are always a rough market. I have a couple of friends that work in or that are working on an MMO, and it is almost never good news. I mean, they seem to be doing fine given what it is, but yeah, the MMO market always seemed to be a bit impenetrable almost. So that's pretty cool. Do you primarily work in Unity then? Or, well, I guess if it's an MMO, that's an iffy statement. Not a lot of MMOs in Unity, so I'm assuming that you don't primarily work in Unity. All right, let's see here. So, what were we doing wrong here? Spawn missing oh, duh. Wait, no. I call clear missing section. Okay, so that, that is not great. Okay. So, system index is less than leftover systems.count. We return systems, we add the systems. Okay. Oh, right. There we go. That's what I forgot. I forgot one of the most important bits, which is at the end of this not for loop, but at the end of this spawn missing section fog effects method, we need to despawn whatever we have left. Otherwise, they're just gonna stay there. Although that shouldn't have caused the stacking that we were seeing. So question mark. Still though, let's go ahead and give this a shot. So we're gonna say if system index is less than leftover systems dot count, then we're going to do a for int I equals system index. I is less than leftover systems dot count I plus plus, and we're going to say I want to do that in reverse. No, we're good. Okay, so we're going to say I do remove you, correct? I do. going to say leftover systems of I dot stop, and then we're going to go ahead and say fog systems dot remove leftover systems of I. Okay, I think that's all we really needed to do. That should handle stopping everything, but I don't think that's going to fix the stacking that we were seeing. I mean, the problem wasn't the game itself. It was enjoyed and still have people bugging me about it. Well, gotta love dedicated fans, I suppose. I just had to do a major recode. Never got around to doing it. That's understandable. I don't know, I touched Unity. The MMO was its own engine. That's about what I was expecting, actually. Um, recode was the biggest problem since the engine was a mutant of a German English. Oh, jeez. Of German, English, and Japanese programmers. Whew. But your comments were fun to read. Assuming that they existed, I guess. All right, let's go ahead and clear this out. Save, and let's see what happens. The German programmers who worked with me early on had some messy code, and it wasn't in English at all. So I'd have to recode all their work with no documentation other than an English-German dictionary. Woof. Okay. Was that it? Whoa, what was up with that? Nope, it's stacking! Darn it. Okay. Let's turn off maximize on play. I'm going to keep an eye on the pool manager as it spawns to see how things are going. But it is pretty cool, though. Yeah, we've had in my experience, I've never had to work with other programmers using different languages, but I have had to deal with content creators using different languages, and that has always been a challenge, just because obviously communication issues are a thing, and usually if it's a different language, they are in a different time zone, which means you have a time zone problem as well. I'm assuming that you ran into something like that if you were working with German programmers that didn't code in English or Japanese. All right, so let's look at our pool manager. We're going to go over to fog. I'm going to look at, okay, so we have 31. So as I walk forward, this will grow, I think, exponentially. Boop. Yeah. Well, actually, it's linearly, I guess. It seems to always go up in counts of 30-ish or so, which is about right. That's the number of, it's about the number of, what's the correct word here? That's about the area, the surface area of the sections. Patch 3 was a major update, planned to add population system to allow players to maintain their planets more in depth. The planet system was so hard-coded and full of stuff like, what's our planet? Okay then, go German. They hard-coded? How do you hard-code a limit of 13 types? You just have a magic integer value that says, don't go more than this. Ooh, that is painful. I do feel your pain. There have definitely, we actually ran into something like that at work today, where we were using a third-party asset for water effects, and their asset searches the scene for an object by name, which is terrible already. But then their asset also demands to be at a very specific path in the project, and if you move it from that path, it completely breaks. And all I can think whenever I hear about those things and work with them, and it's just every time that happens, I just get instantly mad because I've made assets that do not require those things. Like they need to reference arbitrary values, like arbitrary assets in the project, but you can easily find them through scripting. You can figure out how to do that programmatically, but the people who just use the hard-coded method are too lazy to do that, and it drives me insane. Well, what are you gonna do? They defined every planet type and put the code reference to everywhere. I sat down with my other major programmer, simply recode the whole game or cancel it. Yep. I can understand that. So that's basically the Iwata ultimatum. It's like it'll take longer to recode the existing code rather than start from scratch. Um, yeah, it's not. That's unfortunate. I do feel for you. Um, so let's see here. What is not recycling these things? I must have skipped something. So we're going through all of our section fog systems. We go through each one of our sections. Did I accidentally reference a fog system when I should have referenced a section? System index. Let's see. Well, no. Oh, there it is. That's why. When we spawned the new ones, I didn't assign them. That was me being stupid. It's always something small like that. So I'm gonna do this is equal to root. There we go. Okay, that was our problem. One line of code, always is. Um, we actually did try to learn Unity to make a sequel. We decided let's go 3D. Let's make it 50 times better. Ha! The classic trap. But then we had problems with the concept of moving over to 3D and how Unity works. So the project fizzled other than concept art. Yeah, Unity is super weird when it comes to multiplayer. They've gone through 3 multiplayer solutions in the past 5 years, to be generous, maybe 4 years. Um, so they just sunset their newest multiplayer API, and they are now using a new API that they're co-developing with Google, I think. Also, thank you for the follow, Shokanchi. Uh, but yeah, it's not suited for MMOs. You can theoretically do it. There's a big one called Crowfall, I think. Like they're the prime example of an MMO made in Unity, but it is not like the engine is just not built for it. Crowfall is, from what I understand, is using um, the enterprise version of Unity, so they have access to source code and all that. They have to modify it pretty heavily, from what I understand. But okay, let's go ahead and try playing again. Oh yeah, Unity is totally buggy on its own. Um, and it also has a baffling lack of features sometimes. Once you get into custom editor scripting and you like really get into the guts of it, you almost always 5 minutes into any custom script that you're doing for the editor, you'll get mad at Unity and be like, "Well, this just can't be done very easily. Okay, time to use reflection." Like for example, Unity just arbitrarily, for no reason, uh, does not have any way to render unsigned integers or unsigned longs or unsigned anything in the editor. It can do it if you type out a public uint testint field. It'll be a uint field and it'll be properly clamped between uint values, but there's no way to do it in the editor scripting. You can't manually do that yourself. It's really stupid. I hope that granted, I don't know if they've exposed that in 2018 or 2019. I don't think they have, from my experience at work. But I haven't really had to do that too much at work, so I don't know. It's baffling sometimes. Okay, so we're gonna run through here. We're looking good. We're looking good. I think we're looking good. Ooh, crap. Okay, so everything shifted, which is not good. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh no, that's right. It won't work. We tried that. Oh, I forgot. We can't just grab that. Oh, dang it. Crap. Uh, let's see. Absolutely hate the UI main menu system. Yeah, the canvas system. What? Are you saying you don't like waiting one frame to be able to evaluate anything? Come on. Yeah. It's yeah, the UI system is a mess. Although if you want to feel really angry about it, try writing custom components for it. Um, I've rewritten, or I'm not rewritten. I've written several like variations on existing components at work, and it is just the most ridiculous code. I can guarantee that they had different people working on the different components for the Unity source code for their UI components because they are written very differently. The toggle script is completely different format wise from the image script, and it's maddening. Um, I mean, obviously, I don't have so many complaints that I can't work within it, because I am working in it right now. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of shortcomings when it comes to Unity. But I guess that's true for every game engine. Uh, I'm the main programmer really, and I was like, I'd rather code Java at this point. Oh man, that is bad. Java. Ugh. Ugh. I was never a fan of Java. I hated working in it. Um, okay, so crap baskets. We have right. So I can't set it manually, and I can't have everything stop, or it won't work. Frack. All right, we got to do it the brute force method, which I hate, but I will do. So we're basically stuck in a position where we cannot we cannot we have to move particle systems around to make them appear correct, and simultaneously we also have to spawn new ones if we don't have enough. So, but if we spawn new ones, they will start with a random seed that is different from the existing ones, and even if we assign it at the same time, um, the random seed is still different enough because it takes, I'm assuming, one frame for everything to evaluate properly, that it desyncs. That's why we saw the pop in when we teleported. It's fine when it's initial because everything's spawning at the same time, and therefore it's getting the same random seed. But if it's if we're going into an area that has more sections, then it's just not going to function properly. So we have to change that up, and instead we are going to basically we're gonna do this the old school way. We're just gonna spawn a bunch of them at the start and move them way below the ground. Um, so the old programmer trick of just load it into memory and shove it off 1,000 meters away. Let's see. You want to know something scary? I do. I always love talking horror stories. The original versions of the MMO, not the release version. Made in PHP. Really? Oh my god. So so is that like so is that Java and JavaScript for the game engine part and PHP and MySQL for the backend? Like just for data tables? Or did you actually get PHP in like a game engine? Because I mean, I guess you could do that in theory, but I would still assume that it would be slow, comparatively speaking. Um, so yeah, that means that we just have to cheat basically. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and come down to here, woods layout new, and we're just gonna spawn a bunch of them. Oh man. Who doggy? Okay, so we are going to have to handle this. I guess that means that we're going to do this. So I'm going to say serialize field, tooltip, private int preload fog count, I guess, is equal to 0. Actually, we'll probably, let's just set it to be like 100. Amount of, well, not amount of, we're going to say number of fog particle instances to spawn at the start to, no, how about this? To spawn on, not ib, on start. Okay. So that instance is with an E. That should work. Okay, so now we have to figure out a way to pre-populate those, but then also dynamically position them, which is rather vexing, but I think I know how we can do that. So I'm going to come down here, I'm going to say private list particle root system. I'm going to say fog preload systems, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. A lot of the code was also in PHP. We simply hooked it up to all browsers, or to browsers. It was mostly meant for admins and tracking data. Okay. So it really didn't matter if it was slow. The game didn't trust the client at all. Yeah, that does tend to be the case, I guess, with MMOs. It's just, honestly, that's one of the reasons why I never really shifted towards MMOs. Is because I personally like responsiveness over client or over server authority. And obviously, in an MMO, you can't trust your players because you can very easily have people that'll cheat and try to game the system. So you want as much of that to be on the server side as possible. But I don't know. It always feels unresponsive to me. Um, but I completely understand the decision. Game was pretty much server run on everything. It worked though. It just had a lot of problems with being able to update it. Since if you wanted to update the game, it required a lot of manual inputs to connect to the server data with the new data, then update the clients. Too much work to just do things like seasonal events. So that version was scrapped. Our community called our game a spreadsheet simulator. Okay, so that makes, so you're thinking something more like like Eve Online instead of WoW. So it was more about the stats and the data. Because in that case, I could see it, like the responsiveness of it not being too much of an issue. All right, so I'm going to come down to here at the very bottom, and I'm going to say private void start. And in start, we're just going to say pool manager dot. Oh, not again. Of course not. So we've run into the same problem that we've run into before. Pool manager dot request. Whatever, that works just fine. Go to definition. Of course not. Go to definition. So I need to add this to my pools. This is something that we have at work, but we do not have, or that I do not have here. Since I write the majority of our system code at work, I often conflate the two systems, and I always think, oh, I totally have this in my system at home, and then it's like, oh, nope, I just wrote that for work. Go figure. Yeah, people mentioned it was closer to Eve, OGame, and Freelancer in 2D. Okay. Check stats on everything, gave pretty much full control over how their cruise ships ran. Makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and have this be an SOS mono behavior as well. Object pool, peak definition, also making you an SOS mono behavior. Oh, that should actually make it a slightly more performant thing. Isn't that nice? So I need to go to object pool, go to definition. I am going to add a function. Create. So we're going to go ahead and say public static void preload, and we're going to say game object prefab, and then we're just going to go ahead and say int amount. I guess we're going to do that all at once for now, because I would probably come back after this to make the system not be synchronous, so I could do stuff like load it over frames. For now, I'm not too worried about it. We're only spawning 100. That's not really a big order. Ships also moved in real time, depending on engines, distance, and other junk. So that's why it didn't matter if the game ran slowish, since nothing was fast. Makes sense. The vastness of space is quite, well, vast. So even battles took time, as it was hours-long battles, and you, of course, had multiple fleets. Makes sense. That's the danger of talking about your game, right? Is that you get inspired to work on it again. So we're just going to do an easy thing here, and this also is not going to be static. It's actually just going to be that. I'm going to say for int I equals 0, I is less than amount, I plus plus. We're just going to say request, actually we'll just say recycle request prefab. Pretty straightforward. And then we're going to go over to Pool Manager. Pretty much this is going to do the same thing. It's just going to be a wrapper for that. So we're going to come up to here. I'm just going to say public static void preload game object prefab int amount. And then we're just going to call get pool prefab dot preload prefab amount. Pretty straightforward. So now I should be able to go to Woods Layout New. We're going to say preload, and we're just going to give it frick! Of course not. Okay. Okay, let me think. Say not game object. Game manager dot get particle manager dot get particle. Are you gonna give me? Yeah, that's not what I want. I want the data. Of course not. So get particles. Go ahead and go to definition here. I guess that means I'm going to expose getting the particle system prefabs. So we're going to go ahead and say get particle names. We're going to come up to here, and I'm just going to say public particle system. Particle root system is actually what I wanted. Particle root system. Get particle prefab. Int ID. Okay. And all we're going to do there is we're just going to basically do this. Collections.has system. Yep. That is pretty much what we're doing. So we're basically doing this. So we're going to come up to here, and then we're going to return system. So that's pretty straightforward. Get system, which should just return the actual systems. Yep. Okay, so I can, instead of doing this now, I can just say it's equal to get particle prefab ID. Pretty straightforward. How nice is that? Okay. So now I can go back to here. So you get particle prefab. Give it our fog particle ID. Okay. So that's that, followed by preload amount. Yeah. Okay. And I know that you're going to complain, so let's go ahead and just make this convenient for ourselves. So we're going to go ahead and say public static void, void preload. If I ever do remake it, it's not multiplayer. Oh, so you'd want to go for a more in-depth single-player experience, I would assume? uh, who doesn't hate netcode programming? Too much checking, making sure players can't sabotage, cheat on everything. Yeah, my general attitude, and I mean, admittedly, this is because I don't really, I've never really been a big MMO person. Um, is I tend to favor towards the client side, giving them more authority to just play the game, because that makes for a better gameplay experience, in my opinion. Um, but in situations like MMOs or multiplayer, obviously you need the server to exert authority to prevent cheating, which makes it one of those difficult things to handle properly. Prefab into mount where t derived from component, um, and then all we're really going to be doing here is just calling uh, preload prefab game object. That should be fine. And then amount. So pretty straightforward there. Don't have to do much. Okay. So now if we pop back over to here, that should function properly. Okay, so that handles preloading everything, but that doesn't actually let us request everything then. So actually I did that probably for nothing. Because I'm instead of doing that, I'm going to want to handle it like this. Although that preload functionality is nice for other things. So what I actually want to do here is I want to basically do a for loop. So I'm going to do for int I equals 0, I is less than preload fog count, I plus plus. And we're just going to say what did I call it? Preload fog preload systems dot add. I guess that's fine. Game manager dot get particle manager dot play particles, and then actually no, I want to say get particles, don't I? Ah, crap. Get particles. Then fog particle ID. Okay. Oh, right. Let's do this in one big thing first. Particle root system. Root is equal to that. We're gonna add root. Do you know what your next game is going to be then? Do you have like a rough idea, or you just know that you want to do something that's a little bit more like fun to play and make? Okay, the position. Right. We're going to say null here, followed by new vector 3, not new bool, new vector 3. And it's going to be 0f negative 1000f, 0f, followed by false. Okay. You're not going to work like that. You will not work like that because you always freaking do that. Alright. That means I have to manually do this then. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go down to here, and I'm going to grab this, and you are just going to make things so complicated for me because I always overcomplicate my own systems. I'm going to get rid of the transform position here. We don't actually care about it. We just want the position here. So position, we can get rid of offset. Get rid of you. Get rid of you. And quaternion.identity. How nice. Alright. Parenting is now a moot point, actually. Which means that probably rotation should be a thing. Quaternion rotation. You know, I'm going to go ahead and make that a default quaternion because that lets me do that without having to worry about it. Ah, man, quaternion.identity won't let me do that, will it? Quaternion.identity, you're not a constant, are you? You're not. You're static value, I bet. Your static value. Of course you are. Okay. So that should work. I think the default value for a quaternion is going to be an identity rotation. So this is a moot point. Boop. Get rid of that. And we're going to make this rotation. Okay. So that should theoretically work. Let's go ahead and pop back over here to woods layout new. We're not going to say null here anymore. We're going to do that. And we're going to say quaternion. Oops. Actually, I guess I could do that, couldn't I? Yeah, let's try that and see how that works. So we have our root. We need a random seed. So we're just going to say uint random seed is equal to uint random.range, not random range, just range, from 0 to int.max value. Okay. And then we're just going to say root.random seed, root.particles.random seed is equal to random seed. Boom, boom. And then we're going to say root.play. Okay, so that should work for everything that we need. And that means okay. Basically, what we're going to want to do here is when we go to spawn missing section fog effects. All right. So the way that this is going to work is a little odd. So we're going to try to use existing sections first. Then we're going to say else if fog preload systems.count is greater than 0. Then we're going to do this. We are going to say, basically it's this. So we're going to get rid of system index. Don't have to worry about that. We're going to set this is going to be equal to fog preload systems of... We're going to do it from the rear forward. That way we're not shifting everything. I don't actually know if that's more... Oh my goodness. Ooh, could we use a stack? Ooh, I never get to use stacks. Okay. Oh, I never get to use stacks. Ooh, I love me some stacks. Okay. So we are going to come down to here, and we're going to say instead of add, we are going to say, what is it? Is it Q? NQ? No. Q. Pop? No, pop is the one that gets us the value. Dot numerator peak pop push. There we go. Root. Okay, so push should put it in there, and we want it to be a stack, not a queue. We basically want it to just take whatever from the top. So instead of calling this, we are not going to say system index. Instead, we are going to say dot pop. Oh man, I never get to use these, so I'm actually kind of happy about that. If the count is greater than 0, blah, 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 systems, system index, position. No, you're not what I want. Right, so we're going to change this to be this. Okay. So that should work. Let's give that a test. Okay. So now we should have not a queue, a stack that we populate, and I might have seemed terrible when I got excited there, but I have not used stacks in a long time, and this is exactly what they're great for. So I don't want to have to worry about the amount of it or the index or blah, blah, blah. I just want to get the top one off and not worry about it. Um, okay, so in theory, this should work. As long as it gets started first. So we'll find out. I don't actually remember if it shows me stacks. You don't. That's fair. That is fair. Ah, shoy. It might be okay. I'm not. Okay, hold on. Should I call an add? Call and remove. That's a good point, actually. I don't want to do this. Um, systems not add. I suppose I can just do that for both of them. So let's go ahead and do fog systems dot add root. Am I playing still? Okay, good. Then do a couple of things. We can do fog preload systems dot clear. And the other thing here is instead of doing this, stopping them and moving them, or stopping them and removing them, instead we're going to go ahead and say leftover systems of I dot transform dot position is equal to new vector 3 0f negative 1000 f 0f, shove it way down below the world, and I guess we'll go ahead and say fog preload systems dot add, sorry, dot push leftover systems of I. That should basically handle that. So now instead of stopping them and recycling them, which would gradually chip away at what we have built up, instead I am going to just push them back into the stack of available preloaded fog. And then we're going to move it down so that it's out of sight. So that fixes the issue there. But we still have that other problem, don't we? Crap. We still have the problem of fog not rendering if you're not looking at it. I do not know what to do about that because that's a culling thing. I can try to look up and see if I can turn culling off on fog or on particle effects. I would assume that there's some way of doing that. Hmm. Nope. Shoot. Did you spawn stuff? Nope. It's still 100, but we're getting pop in. Are we? Yes, we definitely are. It seems fine on the way back, but shoot, why is it different? They should all have the same random seed. Well, crud. Okay. Great. I I'm trying to tell if they are showing up at different times. I think they are. So, okay. Let's go backwards. Do these all look the same? I No. They are close, I think. It's really hard to tell. I keep thinking that there's like a minor fraction of a section or of a second between them, but nope. Okay. So they got desynced somehow, weirdly. Um great. I have to assume because it didn't spawn any extra prefabs in the pool. I am assuming that the fog being out of sight is basically causing these issues. So it is when it gets put 1,000 meters below the ground, it is culling and not running. And I think because of that, the random seed values are getting out of sync. So I need to find another solution. Um, that won't work. Okay. We're gonna call it a night there, I think. I am not sure what to do about this. We have tried several different approaches, and all of them have failed for what I want them to do. Okay. Yeah. I. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to do here. Ugh. All right. So, I mean, we got fog synchronizing, kind of. But now Unity is fighting us on getting it to actually be synchronized. Go figure. Um, what makes this incredibly frustrating is that I don't think this would be an issue if we didn't have that one error that fell or that gets logged whenever you try to set the random seed while it's running. You'd think that you'd be able to set the random seed of a particle effect while it's running, but apparently not in Unity because why would you ever want that? So cool. Yeah, I'm gonna try to figure this out then. So fun times. Announcements. I don't particularly have anything. So we should be good to stream on Thursday and this weekend. Um, and yeah, so as always, I want to thank you all very much for watching. and I will see you all next time.